welcome back to the sideline. I'm Rory Jones, and today I'll be returning to the National Football League. Now, first of all, for anyone listening from the United States, I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving. And for anyone listening from the UK, I hope you enjoyed the Black Friday sale. So this week, I'll be reacting to the latest NFL news, as well as discussing the league's plans for international expansion and the growth of American football in the UK. Today, I'm joined by George Eghator, an NFL digital creator and host of his own podcast, which is very appropriately named George on Sports. So it kind of does exactly what it says on the tin. Today's guest is also a former Great Britain Lions running back, so also has some on-field experience. So first of all, George, welcome to the sideline.
Thank you for having me, man. We're right in the middle of it right now when it comes to like the NFL, and anytime I get a chance to talk more about the NFL, I'm never going to say no. So I appreciate you for having me, man.
Absolutely. No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. So for this week's show, I'm actually going to start by reflecting on the game of Week 12 and quite possibly the game of the season so far between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills. The game had all the makings of a classic before it even kicked off. I think you saw the Philadelphia Eagles in their Kelly Green throwback uniforms, probably the cleanest uniforms in the league. Rain was pouring down the entire evening as well in Philadelphia at the Lincoln Financial Field. It really did kind of shape into one as well, didn't it, George?
Man, I mean, what a game. I mean, in my mind, I had it down as an Eagles win just because I was kind of following the narrative, right? I'm a big fan of the Bills just because I love Josh Allen and I love what they got going on there. But I was always one of their critics as well because they just seem to never get over that hump. But what a game it turned out to be. I mean, if people haven't watched it, they're about to find out for spoilers here. But crazy game. And I'll say this: I last season I wasn't a massive fan of the Eagles in terms of how they won games. I get it; they got Hurts is a great guy. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball, push, which no one can seem to stop for some reason. And obviously they made it to the Super Bowl and lost to Kansas. But again, the way they play, they're 10-1 right now, the only 10-win team in the league. There's nothing particularly fancy or exciting about the way they play, if that makes sense. But I get, and it's almost unfair for me to say that because at the end of the day, wins are what anyone cares about, right? Nobody cares about how you win; they just want you to win. So me saying that is a little bit hypocritical, but just watching the game, I thought to myself, right, Bills have got to have this, right? They've got to have this because the Bills are in a real bad position right now, real bad. Their rest of schedule is insane, and they had to win this game to try and keep up in terms of the AFC standings. But it was a great game. Obviously, it went all the way to overtime. I don't know about you, but when I saw the coin toss, I was thinking, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Yeah, absolutely.
The coin toss. But hey, I think they're 0-5 in overtime, so what the hell does it matter?
That is an interesting point you bring up with the overtime. I think, it honestly was such a game. I think, you sounded almost speechless. Jalen Hurts was speechless even after that one. Yeah. But I think for anyone who, I don't know, maybe they went to bed or they just fell asleep or for whatever reason they didn't see the game, it really was a classic. I think, I think the fourth quarter alone, the score's 24-14, the Eagles trailing by 10 points at home, and then you see Jalen Hurts lead a touchdown drive. He threw a fantastic ball to Devontae Smith, I think, for the first one, and then also connected for a second touchdown with University of Virginia's finest, Olamide Zacchaeus as well.
Yeah.
You see Eagles fight back into these games, and Jalen Hurts, I'm pretty sure he started the game as like 4 from 11 of his first passes too, and they kind of really fought back. And for me, that field goal, the 59-yard field goal by Jake Elliott in the rain as well. Imagine how heavy that ball would have been, just the pressure on that kick. But as time expired to send that to overtime.
Yeah, that was special because, again, the elements, the situation of the game, the weight that the game carries for the Bills, it's like, all right, we're on track again. For the Eagles, it's like, well, we're just proving we're unstoppable right now. 10-1, that's insane right now, man. 10-1. Do I feel for the Bills? I said this at the start of the season, right? Sean McDermott and I think Brandon Beanie, the GM, both were extended in terms of their contracts. And I said, one of the things that I said and I stick by is, I feel like the window is closing for these Buffalo Bills. I know it sounds wild, but I really do think it is closing because it almost feels like ever since ever since Brian Dable departed from Josh Allen, you've seen a little bit of old school Josh Allen come into play where and don't get me wrong, when Josh Allen plays hero ball, it does work because evidently he pretty much won a lot of that game on his own last night where he was, running for yards. I think he had more yards than the running backs did.
The touchdown run was amazing as well. I think
exactly right
in the third quarter.
And technically, I mean, you don't want to have your. And I said this last season too, because what happened was he ended up getting banged up, and I believe he hurt his elbow last season. If he becomes the main man in terms of that rushing and always puts it on his back, and he likes to juke guys and take contact, it's not going to end well. And one of the things that I was thinking when I was watching the game, and I think Tony Romo said it just as I was thinking it, if the Bills, I mean, because technically they're not out of it yet, right? They need other things to go their way, but it's looking very, 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 it's an uphill battle for them. If they can really get those running backs if they can run the ball really well and scheme up run plays really well, that's what's going to save this team. It's going to save them because it allows Josh Allen to play a bit more loose, to play more relaxed, and to take the pressure off his back. Because if you can't run the ball, it's pretty much game over. And we saw what happened last season in terms of Josh becoming that number one guy and then getting hurt. It's very strange to see a Bills team with all that talent on the team in a situation. I think 5-6. I think they are now. I'm not too sure what their record is.
I think it's a 6-6 now. I think they're the 10th seed in the AFC now, so they've really dropped off. But
10. That's crazy.
For me, what I found really interesting, coming back to one of the points you made, I think the window closing is definitely something I agree with, because I think you can always look at a team that's got like a stacked roster, or at one point, or they've got like a couple of stars, standout players, a good head coach and quarterback duo perhaps. And you always kind of think, oh yeah, if they don't do it this year, maybe next year or the year after. But then, the Bills have been there and they've been in the thick of it for the last few years now. I think 2020 and 2021, back-to-back AFC Championship games. You've got one which wasn't particularly close, and then you've got the second one more infamously when they lost in overtime, which, kind of fueled a lot of controversy that for overtime. I mean, to be honest though, I do think with the overtime thing, it is... I think for last night you could have no complaints. I think you see that they won the toss. Did you see it also when Brandon Graham was just quite coldly after announcing the coin toss? I think it was Gabe Davis from the Bills is like, we'll receive, and then Graham just walks over and he just goes, it don't matter. Like, that was the fact that if they'd have lost, then it wouldn't have been. But the fact that they won as well. Yeah. I mean, they converted on a few third downs on that drive, but I think ultimately, just for me, I think that game, to be honest, with Josh Allen, like he did an awful lot for the Bills in that game. And I think the touchdown run in particular later on. The only thing is with Josh Allen, for me, I think you could pick out two plays where I think he did kind of hurt his team. I think one of them was the pick. I think in the fourth quarter, worst possible time to throw a pick, and also that was just as the Eagles were getting back into the game. I think they were up. I think it was 24-21 at that point, and they had the ball in their hand. Like 8 minutes left, and I think in their own. I think it was like on the 22-yard line or something like that. And then also the Eagles scored a touchdown very, very quickly after that, and it kind of does make you think, it was a big mistake. Yeah. The second one I kind of looked to. Maybe this is a bit harsh. Tony Romo would probably disagree because I think he's Josh Allen's number one fan. But personally, when you see Gabe Davis wide open for the touchdown on what would have been the game-winning touchdown, and there's a miscommunication, if ever there was one, what an awful moment to be not on the same page as your receiver.
I was going to come to that because I think what happened was on certain routes, wide receivers have an option depending on what the DBs are doing and where their alignment is. And I think for that particular play, Gabe Davis should have known, and probably does know, but for some reason picked a different route. At that point, he had the option to either break to the outside or break to the inside because of, I think the cornerback was pretty much heads up. Gabe's going full speed downfield. You make a break to the inside, it's a home run. So Josh Allen, that telepathic behavior, which is what most QBs and receivers have. If they have that rule in their playbook, you have the option right here, and generally you're gonna go to the inside, like you see a lot of people do. Gabe went to the outside. Josh Allen threw to the inside, and I kind of just sat there and said, "Oh my God, that's it. That was it." I mean, Josh Allen had his hands on his helmet immediately. I'll come back to that window talk. The window for me is definitely closing. I think. Do I want to say this? I might have to say it.
Go for it.
Stephon Diggs, James Cook has been talking about Stephon Diggs leaving the team. I think his parents even said the same thing. It seems that every preseason there's drama with Diggs, right? This season's going to end. It's going to end I want to say badly, like, barring some miracle, and they come back and they make it into playoffs, maybe wild card spot or whatever. If this ends badly, we might just be seeing the loss of Diggs at the Bills because he wants to win and time's a wasted, man.
I think you might be onto something there. Actually, I mean, this is purely speculation, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
there was something around Diggs. I think the last off season about like I'm pretty sure when the Bills lost, there was reports that
Mm-hmm.
like he got changed so quick and just like literally left the stadium before
Mm.
anyone even knew anything of it. Like, so he didn't even talk to the media. There were reports of that. You mentioned he does want to win, and I think coming back to the window talk though, it is a very short window. I think sure you can. I mean, to be honest, I think it's different when it's your team because then you really know.
Yeah.
It. But I think there are always teams that are nearly there. I mean, one team I'd use as an example when I first started following the league around 2014 was the 49ers. And the
Mm-hmm.
49ers, they were in the Super Bowl a couple of years earlier. They had Kaepernick at the time. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
2014. He had an absolutely excellent season as well. I think that's when he signed like a big contract extension at the time. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was a team that was really clicking under Jim Harbaugh. And they just had it. I mean, they lost to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game, and the infamous Richard Sherman rant
Yeah.
play and everything. You kind of do think that the door does close very, very soon.
Just lastly on the Bills for me, just because there's so much. I mean, I love the team just because I think they've got so much potential. But bearing in mind, they've got this really dark cloud of reaching 4 Super Bowls and back to back and not winning one.
It's amazing,
Not
isn't it?
winning one. It's crazy to even think about. And then to have the seasons that they have in where they can't get over that hump, they just can't do it. And now they're sitting, what, 10th, like you say, in the AFC in standings and 5-6 or 6-6, whatever it is. And they're just looking to them. So I'm sure right now they're all probably thinking the same thing that shit, we're in some trouble right now because our schedule is hell.
Do you think it's fair to say Bills are almost like the Spurs of the NFL?
Yeah, man. I mean, Spurs right now. I'm an
they're
Arsenal
pretty
fan,
good
so
this
I'm
season,
loving
to
it.
be fair.
They have been good, and they have been good. I'll give them that, but they've lost their last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
Finished a game with 9 men or whatever it was. Crazy, crazy stuff. And then just got beat by Aston Villa too, who are now in 4th place. So, yeah, I'd give you that. I'd give you that because the Bills seem to they're just slowly falling away. Just like I hope Tottenham continue to fall away because no one wants Tottenham in that top 10, especially me.
It's almost like that legacy of like always being nearly there. Like there's something
Yeah,
about
man.
that. It's something quite haunting about that as well. I mean, they do have
Yeah.
amazing fans. I'll give them that. Coming back to the Eagles, though, I
hmm
think my biggest takeaway from the game. I mean, do you think the Eagles now? It's fair to say they are the Super Bowl favorites.
Oh man, I can't stand Nick Sirianni, so I hate saying it. But I think you have to give credit, man. What I'm seeing from the Eagles is a very complete team, offensively, defensively. They traded for Kevin Byard from the Titans, and he had a pick last week, I believe it was.
Really clutch
they're
one as well.
playing. Yeah, exactly, and they're showing that they can win in different ways, even without Kelsey had a bad. This is Jason Kelsey. Now had a bad game. I think he had 2 penalties back to back, where he was just twitching on the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And in my mind, it was like, all right, cool. These are all the signs that the Bills need. They're probably feeling good, momentum swinging. And Jalen Hurts goes and does what Jalen Hurts does, which, the running, the ball ability, just it takes away. And this is why I'm so upset that Anthony Richardson, I know this is more Colts talk. This is why I'm so upset that he's not around right now. But, I mean, with a guy like Hurts who can do what he does, and then you add in the weapons too. And bearing in mind, A.J. Brown had a very quiet game. I think he scored a touchdown and had, I don't know how many yards, but he had a quiet game for his standards. But that's because he was planned for. And, the Bills planned for him. So I think with the Eagles, I mean, 10-1 is just a ridiculous record. The only 10-win team in the league right now. They look complete. However, this is the NFL. On any given Sunday, anything can happen. So if the Eagles are to make it to the Super Bowl, there's no guarantee they actually win the thing. For whatever reason. I mean, just look at the state of the NFL right now, and this is what I love about this sport. I was in the group chat with Asher NFL and Dre. Last night talking about the game, and I was just losing my mind at the games. I mean, at the time, the Raiders were winning, the Broncos were winning, the Broncos actually went on to win. Like, what is the Broncos who started 1-5? Sean Payton was a laughing stock of the league. He lost to the Jets after the comments about Nathaniel Hackett, or lost to teams that they weren't expected to lose to. Essentially, they're on an absolute roll right now. I mean, they played against the number one, top 2, top 3 defense in the league in the
Yep.
Browns. Granted, they never had Miles Garrett, but I think they would have won that game regardless. I mean, you look at them; the Raiders had a few good wins in recent weekends as well, and things are just the Colts are 6-5. Can I
Yeah,
just say, like, I'm coming back to these Colts again. I'll let you jump in, but I got to big up
you're
these
fine.
Colts, man. I just got to say, like, the narrative of teams who should win in the NFL and then don't win, and teams who don't win that should win. I always say that NFL stands not for long, right? The Colts are down their starting quarterback, who's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the league, even though he's only a rookie, right? We never had Jonathan Taylor for our first 3 games, but Zach Moss was great. We're down both of our starting quarterbacks, and Dallas Flowers and Juju Brents, who's a rookie, by the way. Leonard is obviously not the same guy, but he's been released as well now, although we do have a new crop of defensive linebackers and EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin and Edward Carmen guys who are doing really well for us. But Shane Steichen, as a head coach, first-time head coach, has transformed the team. Gardner Minshew isn't anything to be scared of, but what we're doing right now is amazing for what we've got. So the whole narrative in the league, I always think to myself, okay, at the start of the season, teams aren't playing very well, but hey, we're more than halfway through. We're approaching playoff football, which is what I like to call when teams need to show what they're really made from. And a lot of teams are showing up and surprising us. But as for the Eagles, they continue to get it done. I'm not too sure who they're playing. Oh, actually, it's the 49ers, right? Eagles 49ers
And they've
next.
got a tough schedule coming up. Actually, I think
Let me have a look.
they've got the Cowboys as well. I'm pretty
Nah,
sure.
oh
Eagles.
man, this is where we're going to
Um,
find out.
that record they have, they're already in the playoffs. I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of, yeah. But I think time will tell, and I think definitely the phrase that you used a moment ago, any given Sunday, you never know what's going to happen, and I think that's one of the unpredictability of the NFL is one thing that makes it great. I mean, one random stat. I don't know which nerd found this one out, but apparently the score in the Browns Broncos game, 29-12. That's the first time in NFL history that's ever happened.
Scorigami.
Yeah, something.
Shout
Yeah,
out Scott Hanson on that one.
it's so random, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
to be fair, someone will have spent hours looking that one up. I reckon someone at ESPN or somewhere. But
yeah.
it is crazy how unpredictable it is. But coming back to Jalen Hurts though, and the Eagles, I think. I mean, seemingly he's the most stoic. He's probably the most
Hmm.
stoic quarterback. Definitely, I can think of who's currently in the league. On that drive to win the game, he led a 75-yard drive. He ran that 12-yard touchdown. And in fairness, Jason Kelsey, I agree, he didn't have his best game,
Hmm.
but the block he made as well for that run as
Yes.
well, where he just
Yeah.
whipped around the corner after snapping the ball, just directly took out the blitz. That was incredible.
Hmm.
But I think looking at Jalen Hurts though, he's accounted for 29 touchdowns this season. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns, and yes, a lot of it might have been the brotherly shove from
Hmm.
1 yard out, but that's incredible. I mean, do you think
Yeah.
do you think Hurts is leading the race for MVP right now?
Is it weird if I say no? This is the problem with. I mean, this MVP conversation sometimes really bothers me because the league looks at it one way and one way only, and they look at the quarterback, right? And it shouldn't just be that way because I get it. The quarterback, they run the ship and they're in charge of, running the offense and essentially leading these wins and putting these teams in positions to succeed and hopefully making it to the Super Bowl. And I had this discussion with some of the guys on the AAH show the other day. For me, I would love to see a non-quarterback get the MVP. And I'm not saying
Yeah,
just give it to them, but there are so many guys in the league. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is a freak of nature. The guy does it
yeah,
all. The guy passes the ball, runs the ball, throws the ball. I mean, I remember the last season he had the three-peat. He had a passing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown. Then you've got guys like Tyreek Hill who I'm hoping is going to hit that 2,000 receiving yards mark because it's not been done before. And I just feel like it's going to take something. Like Adrian Peterson, I believe, was the MVP some years ago, but he hit, I think it might have been 2,000 yards. And it
he did.
seems
Yeah, I
like,
think it's 2012 season.
right,
'Cause I think he came back from an ACL as
he
well. Like,
did, yeah. It feels like it's going to take something like that for the league to go, all right, we're not going to give it to a QB. But the way it's going, they're going to give it to a QB. And it is hard to look past what Hurts is doing, regardless of the way it's coming, the tush push from the one, the scramble ability. Again, I don't think they're an exciting team to watch in any given minute. I don't think they are at all. But the results speak for themselves, and all that matters is numbers on the boards. And they're sitting at 10-1 right now. So you look at who's running that ship. It's Jalen Hurts. Obviously, they've got a great defense too, and great management and great coaching. Or I hate to say it, Nick Sirianni. But in terms of the MVP, I mean, at one point I was at one point I was thinking about Patrick Mahomes just because they're still winning games with pretty much nothing there. For me, a big shout is Lamar Jackson. I'm a massive, massive fan of Lamar. Yeah, you like that one. Just
It's
give it.
back for this episode. It's back, and it's not just because my mum reminded me it wasn't there for the last episode, but the jersey's back. It's
Yeah,
fair to
I
say.
think when you look through, I mean, yeah, Jalen Hurts, give him his flowers. He's got to be in the conversation for sure. But for me, it's just I want to see what. Not that it's expected for Jalen Hurts, but for people like Lamar, who have had injury-plagued seasons and their team have never been able to stay healthy. He's obviously lost Mark Andrews now, but you've got a guy like Zay Flowers, Bateman staying healthy. The run game's looking good, and their defense, I think, is the closest to the 2000 defense we've seen in
It's been
ages.
unbelievable.
It's him doing what people say he can't do, passing the ball, and his new Todd Monken offense is I think getting the best out of him in terms of not having to do everything on his own. So Jalen Hurts, yes, but I'd also put Lamar very, 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 very high up there.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the non-quarterback. I was actually going to bring this guy up anyway. I mean, I'd absolutely love to see Lamar Jackson get a second MVP, so I'm not gonna complain if that's the case. But personally, I think I'd love to see it be a non-quarterback. I can't even remember the last time a non-quarterback won it. It might have been Adrian Peterson. I
I
remember in
think it might.
2014, JJ Watt was just completely robbed of the award, but we won't go there.
Mm.
I think speaking of non-quarterbacks though, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I think the Thanksgiving game against the Seahawks, he was feasting on a lot more than just turkey. I think he literally, I mean, his numbers really speak for themselves. 19 carries for 114 yards. That's averaging 6 yards a carry. He had 6 receptions for 25 yards, which just on top of that, it's like gravy if you like. But he's the league's leading rusher by over 100 yards now, with 939 as we speak, averaging 4.9 yards per carry. He's got 11 touchdowns on the ground, and then also 5 receiving touchdowns and 389 receiving yards. So
Mhm.
the stuff that this guy is doing, I mean, he had the 17-game streak of having a touchdown
Yeah.
every game since he got traded to the 49ers. Honestly, I mean, as a former running back as well yourself, I mean, how would you react to that if it were to be
Honestly,
McCaffrey?
yeah, reading out those numbers, I'm sitting here thinking, why is he not just the guy already? Like, he's nearly on 1,000 yards. He probably, whether he'll make 1,000 receiving yards, I'm not sure. Definitely hit the 500 mark. But for a running back, right, who let's just think about what a running back's responsibilities are: pass blocking against big ass guys who are trying to knock their block off, rushing the ball, taking hit after hit from linebackers and safeties and defensive linemen, being able to catch, well, in his case, being able to catch the ball as well, make yards after contact, make guys miss, have so many different responsibilities, try and play all three downs as well. And he does it week in, week out. And, there's a lot of talk about the running backs, the role being diminished. I'm sorry, this league needs to wake the hell up. I mean, people like McCaffrey, and I know Eckler's not having a great few games right now. Jonathan Taylor, you can see the impact he's had on the Colts. People that have this narrative, right, about, well, I say people, the league, about we don't want to pay you because you can't do this. If you remove Saquon Barkley from the Giants, if you remove Jonathan Taylor from the Colts, and I know we had Zach Moss who did some good things for us, but he isn't JT. If you remove Nick Chubb, who have been removed from the Browns, and somehow they're still winning games, God knows how, defense wins championships, I suppose. And a number of these other guys from these offenses will stutter and stall purely because they don't have their number one weapon. If the 49ers don't have Christian McCaffrey, they're not the same offense. They have to game plan very, very differently. So to see McCaffrey doing what he's doing and to have these numbers at this point in the season is ludicrous. It's absolutely ridiculous, right? So the more you think about it, the more you have to think to yourself, why is there not more talk about him being the guy? I mean, because he's not a quarterback, and that's the long and short of it. And it sucks because he's doing a lot of work right now, and he's doing it so consistently.
The value he brings to that team. You mentioned that the responsibilities of a running back. He ticks every box. I think he's an unbelievable player, and I mean the way his game's evolved as well. I think he started out as a guy who's fantastic route running. He was kind of better to kind of bounce it outside, I think, but he wasn't necessarily the guy to run up the middle. But then you see how the way he's running now. He's the most
Hard
complete
running.
back by far.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I mean, he was doing this at the Panthers too when the Panthers had nothing going. Now you put him into this Shanahan offense where, it's almost like a plug and play, but you've got so many other weapons. Kittle, Debo, Ayuk. It's scary, man. So I mean, 49ers, people talk about them being in the Super Bowl, making it to the Super Bowl. He makes, I forget his name, the rookie QB, not rookie, sorry,
Oh, Brock
Mr.
Purdy.
Irrelevant, Purdy. He makes his job
Mr.
so much
Irrelevant.
easier. Yeah, I mean, how ironic is that, right? Last pick of the draft, and lo and behold, this is a guy who's leading these guys on a Super Bowl charge. So, man, I love the NFL. It just every season I say to myself, "Oh, last season was great," and then I find myself saying, "Oh my gosh, this season's even better," because the narrative's just the Browns. Who thought the Browns were going to be where they are right now? I didn't. The Steelers. Mike Tomlin. Every time I think they're about to have a losing season, Mike Tomlin whips it out the bag, and somehow, they've won 6 or 7 games. I'm not a big fan of Kenny Pickett. I don't think they've got a lot going for themselves. Najee Harris, I said last season, they ran him into the ground because they had no other option. Now Jalen Warren is the main guy, but they just keep winning games, and they're winning ugly. But who cares? Because they're winning. Right? All these teams that are just shocking people. I just never thought they'd be there, and that goes for Steelers, the Browns. For the Colts, I was looking for a 5-win season just because I wanted the chemistry and progression with AR, and we ain't even had him. So, man, the NFL just continues to throw out surprises every single weekend.
I mean, as much as for my own personal allegiances, I kind of would love to see the Steelers implode. I'm still waiting on that season. I think under Tomlin, they've been nothing short of incredible. I think
Yeah.
he's so overlooked as well. People talk about some of the best coaches to do it. I mean, when you think the Steelers have had like 2 coaches over, I think it's like 3 decades or maybe even
Insane.
longer, it is insane. But I think talking about dynasties or about some of the most successful teams in the league, I think that's a nice segue into what is, well, in many ways the most successful team in NFL history, the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was another weekend to forget. I think it's fair to say for Bill Belichick and his players. The Patriots lost 10-7 to the New York Giants, and now they've fallen to a 2-9 record for the season, which is their worst start to an NFL season since 1992. Mac Jones, after going 12 of 21 for 89 yards and 2 interceptions, was benched, not for the first time this season. They're dead last in the AFC East. And then just to throw these numbers in there as well, they are 27-34 since Tom Brady left after the 2019 season. And when Brady was there, they were 200. They were 219-66 win and
Wow.
loss ratio. So it's quite some departure from that. Um,
Oh, man.
is the dynasty over? What do you think's next
Is it,
for New
bro?
England?
Look, at the start of again this 888 show that I'm doing with these guys, the kickoff show, we were given hot takes, right? And my number one hot take was this is the end of the Patriots dynasty. As we know, it's the end. It's the end of Bill Belichick there too, in my opinion, and it all comes crumbling down. They are a mess. They're a hot mess. Last season, they had issues with their coaches, Matt Patricia and whoever else. No one was sure who the play caller was. Mac Jones wasn't too happy with the setup. You look ahead to the season now. You said it. They're 2-9. They are 2-9. You don't associate the Patriots with this kind of losing record. You don't associate the Patriots with the embarrassment that you see in the quarterback room. A few things for me though, right? The whole QB chop and change game. If you're going to start Mac, start him for the entire of the game, right? Don't do like they did it in Frankfurt. They put Mac in and they took him out and put in Bailey Zappi for the last damn drive of the game, who tried to fake spike and threw an interception to Rodney Thomas. Like, what are you doing?
That
And
was
then
the
in this
weirdest
game,
play as well.
yeah, very strange. In this game, they take him out at halftime, I think it is, and put in Bailey Zappi, whoever it is. They've now released Will Greer, so it's Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. But this whole flip flop of okay, we'll use you, then we'll use you. What is happening? It's so embarrassing. And I say all that because it leads me to say this, right? There was a lot of talk about Brady versus Bill Belichick in terms of who's the real reason for success here. And now you're seeing a lot of vets come out and people, in the media coming out to say, well, really and truly, I guess the win bucket sits with Tom Brady because Tom Brady left and won another one with the Bucks. And ever since he left, like you said, the Pats have been trash. They've been abysmal. There's only a few highlights on the team right now. Demario Douglas, I believe the rookie, he's a decent wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne was a good one for them, but I think he tore his ACL or tore his Achilles. He's out for the season as of 3 or 4 weeks ago. The running game is okay. Ramondre Stevenson is all right back. Ezekiel Elliott is past it, in my opinion. But I just don't know. I don't recognize the identity anymore. I don't know if Bill even cares anymore. A couple of the guys that I was with went into the Patriots post-game conference in Frankfurt. And oh my God, the feedback I got, I don't know if you've seen any of it, but it was really, really gloomy, really dark. The questions that they were asking Mac Jones as well: do you still trust Bill Belichick? Do you still trust the team? Do you think you're good enough? I mean, they were eating him alive. But I
Twisting
mean,
the knife there, then.
bro, honestly, and it's am I sad to see it? Hell no. The Patriots trash on the Colts over and over and over again, man. So whilst it's strange to see, I think nothing lasts forever, and you see this. Teams go in cycles, right? And they have their moment where they win. I mean, no one's done it like the Patriots have, winning that many Super Bowls, or should I say, Tom Brady winning that many Super Bowls back to back, and just in total, I think it's 6 or 7, whatever it is. Sound crazy. So yeah, this is the end for me. I don't think where can you go from here? This is it. You know, they'll have one of the better draft picks because they're so terrible. Will they win another game? I honestly don't know. You know, the Panthers are another one of those teams, and the Patriots to be aligned with a team like that who just fired their head coach, you know, ex-head coach of the Colts, Frank Reich. It's just so damn embarrassing. I just wonder what Bill thinks right now. He's what, 71, 71 or 77? I'm not too sure. That might be Pete
Definitely
Carroll.
70s.
70s, yeah, for sure. And you're just thinking, like, do you not just want to like take a break, man? This has got to be impacting you in some way. Like, the guy doesn't even show any kind of emotion outside of being a head coach. I know it's the NFL, but life is more than just that. You guys are getting beat down every single weekend. Like, what next? Do you go up into management? Do the team ask him to retire? Do they publicly fire him? How does it go? I just don't know. But for sure, this has to be the end. Has to be.
I think one of the difficult things at Belichick is because the fact that he's a GM and a coach as well. So you got to take that into consideration. Do they keep him on as a GM, fire him as the coach, or the other way round, or does he just step away entirely? I mean, you'd like to think he's kind of earned that right in a way to step away, to leave on his own terms, I suppose. But it is just, I mean, there's, you know, from a fan perspective, you are kind of like, okay, finally, this is over. I think one of our best friends is a Patriots fan, and he's kind of talking about the team. And I have zero sympathy. I mean, they have had quite the run. In fairness, I mean, for me, they are the greatest NFL franchise in terms of what they have done. I mean, even if it was over like a 20-year stretch, the fact that they went to 9 Super Bowls, they won 6. They were led by the greatest of all time, and I think Belichick. I think whatever. I think there's a lot of layers to it. I think in how they've kind of unraveled, I guess, in the last couple of years. I think you look at some of the weird personnel decisions. I think the weirdest one for me is Matt Patricia, a defensive coordinator, former defensive coordinator, coming back as the offense coordinator for a second year starting QB. I don't understand how that was ever going to work. I mean, I'm by no means the level of genius that Belichick is, so I don't know. I think for the Patriots, like the way I kind of look at it is, I think I agree with you. I think it is. Things are drawing to a close. The analogy I'd use to, if we're going to compare it to other sports, I'm going to do this as a United fan, but it does kind of remind me of. I mean, I've always seen a very strong comparison actually between Bill Belichick and Alex Ferguson. I think they're both incredibly good man managers. I think they're both very unique characters, strong leaders. And I think you look at the way they've built their teams in completely different sports with, you know, there's a lot of differences on that side of things, but you kind of look at United under Ferguson for like a you know, for decades, for a very long time. Right. So dominant, so hated as well. I think of how hated United are because we were so successful for a very long period. But once you're kind of, you know, your leader, your coach, the emperor, as Julian Edelman referred to him recently, once he's had his day, is kind of, it's almost like now I think Patriots fans are going to feel like United fans in terms of their coming years are going to be almost retribution for their years of being a Patriots fan when they were great.
This is what I mean, though. Like, everybody has their time, right? And I'm coming back to the Colts again because we've had it and everyone's seen it, and we've been the laughing stock for years. What, 5-6 years of QB carousel, from Matt Ryan to Phillip Rivers to Brissett to God knows who, like Hoyer. We've been there. We've suffered. So I don't feel any sympathy for these guys. But here's another point, though, that I've been hearing. I heard a couple rumors about Bill Belichick and what he may or may not do. One of them was to be the head move to the Commanders, which I don't think is going to happen personally. But the other one, which I feel like is more likely to happen, is that he becomes the new head coach of the LA Chargers because Brandon Staley is out. I'm telling you right
He's on the
now,
hot seat. Yeah.
he's gone. He was another one that I said at the start of this season. He's someone who, I mean, I don't want to compare him to Josh McDaniels because Josh McDaniels for me was never a head coach, and we dodged a bullet when he did a U-turn with us. But it doesn't seem like he's got that emotional intelligence to be a player, a kind of player's coach. And I
I
knew
agree
that was
with
never
that
going to work.
completely. Yeah.
And you can see it there, right? So for me, the talk about Bill Belichick, because that's going to be a vacant job, without a doubt. Staley's going to be out because the Chargers have like the second or third highest payroll in the league with a great quarterback like Herbert. And yeah, they've still got weapons. And I know Mike Williams never really stays healthy. But if the Colts can be 5-6, 6-5, sorry, how on earth are the Chargers sitting at the bottom of the AFC West? Like how? It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. So it's a very interesting one. If anything, if he doesn't retire or doesn't just go upstairs and keep to the GM side of the Patriots or go to the Chargers, I don't know what he'll do next. I feel like he should just call it a day and go upstairs, man. I don't know if being on that sideline is the thing for him anymore.
I think the thing is with Belichick, he's been around the league. I think it's 49 years he's been a
Oh
coach in
my
some
God.
capacity in the NFL. That's
Switch it up,
crazy.
bro. 40. Come on.
That
Like
is
he never
actually unbelievable.
smiles.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
yeah, he's been in the league for such a long period. I mean, he was coaching Lawrence Taylor. I think he reflects on him as one of the best players he's worked with. Taylor was decades
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it does kind of you do have these questions. I think there's definitely a lot of questions unanswered about what's going to happen in Foxborough this season. There's a write off, I think, at this point, but going forward, what they decide to do, the coaching position, the general manager position, both definitely question marks over there. And then the team personnel as well. I mean, are the Patriots going to end up with the number one overall pick or something like that? They'll have decisions to make, I'm sure. But definitely, yeah, it's definitely a drama that's only going to continue. I think the way I
Yeah.
look at it.
This has to be rock bottom. It can't get any worse than this. So if you're Bill, you're at rock bottom right now. Nothing's going well. You don't have a run game. You haven't got. You have no squad. You got nothing. Yes, you'll have the draft pick or picks. If I'm Bill, what do I? You've been around the game for nearly 50 years. You're talking about Lawrence. You're talking about guys who like it's decades ago. The game has changed, man. I mean, call it a day. Go upstairs. I don't know, but I feel like it'd be a nice start for the league as well. If not to say get rid of Bill, but if Bill goes upstairs, the whole Patriots dynasty is done. They'll be starting afresh. I don't know where Trey's going to go, but there's time for change for sure.
Definitely seems that way. I think. I mean, the Patriots obviously being one of the teams that you saw when you were over in Germany. But just moving on to the NFL's international games, because I believe were you able to go to all five this year?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I was, which was absolutely amazing. So we had the London games, we had the Falcons and the Jags at Wembley, then we had the Bills and the Titans Bills and the Titans. Is that right? No, Bills and the Jags at
Bills and the Jag,
Tottenham,
yeah.
and then the Titans and the Ravens also at Tottenham. So to see people like Lamar Jackson play, to see Josh Allen play is just, I mean, one thing is having these guys in fantasy and seeing them do things live in the flesh is great because you're like, points. But to see these people in the flesh, in London, in your home country, where you ain't got to travel far to see them, it's something else entirely. Then you see how the fan bases travel. You get to mingle with the fans before and after the game, and you really see how dedicated these fans are. These fans travel, man. These fans travel directly from their hometowns all the way to the UK, and what they do is they make a holiday of it because you ain't going to fly all the way over here and leave the next day. It doesn't make any sense, but London games are great. The London games are always great. The Jags obviously have that relationship now, and they won both of their games. That kind of kickstarted their games on the bounce before they lost a few. And then Germany, wow, man. Germany was just a whole different experience. Like their hardcore fan base is strong. I mean, for starters, Kansas City are the home team for international marketing for Germany anyway. So I mean,
Yeah.
you had so many German fans, but the whole stadium was Kansas. The whole stadium was a home game for the Chiefs, as it should have been. Hardly any. Well, they were Miami fans, but they were drowned out in every corner. It was almost impossible. But obviously, that was a bit of a game. Miami Dolphins nearly. Well, I reckon they could have won it at the end had they not fumbled the snap, and that's how the game ended. But the atmosphere was incredible. The fans were incredible. The tailgating was really good. So that stadium in particular, Deutsche Bank Stadium, has quite a bit of space surrounding it, quite a lot of space, which meant they could do loads of different things, from fan zones to fan activations to stage pop-up. They did everything. So it was very, very, very good. And yeah, the fans are hardcore. They're there to die for. They love the sport. Brett Gosper, the CEO, he mentioned about Germany having a huge NFL fan base, both casual and hardcore. And you've got to remember as well, they've got a very successful GFL, which is a domestic league, and they've had that for so many years, and it's still going strong. And those are the games where they can attract crowds of 20,000 plus for domestic games, not even to talk about the NFL. In terms of, and you're probably going to touch on this, but in terms of moving forward, in terms of the international scene, London will always have the three, I think, anyway. Will always have the three, because the Jags have a separate agreement, I think, to play here for the next 10 years, I think it is.
They seem to have like a long-term contract that they keep renewing, essentially.
Yeah, and this was the first time they played back-to-back weekends, which I think really helped for them, being able to stay here and adapt and acclimatize, which, can never be a bad thing.
The question I'd always ask is always the inevitable one. When it comes to the NFL and the UK, they've planted their flag here since, I think it's 2007, the first international game, and since then they've been back pretty much every year. Do you think that is a possibility at some point that we'll see an NFL team in the
UK? I'm still going to say no. Not because I don't want it to happen, because if it happens, oh my gosh, believe me, I think we can guarantee sold out season ticket, everything will happen. It will go the way they want it to go. I just don't think logistically it will work. I think there's too much logistics and red tape involved in terms of travel and that's the main thing. Just the logistics, the travel, the scheduling. I just don't know how that would work personally for a team to be. I feel like it's too much of a disadvantage, man. I don't know. I would love it to, because for us fans, it means, oh my gosh, we get access to a team here, and that opens up a whole new avenue in terms of jobs and opportunities and access. It would be, every UK NFL fan's dream. I just don't think it will happen. Every year they ask Roger Goodell about it, and he says maybe, ifs and buts. And I know the owner of the Jags, Khan, secured the rights to Wembley, I believe it was, at some point, and that kind of kicked up the interest. But nah, I don't think it's going to happen, man. I don't think so. And if it does, I'd be very surprised.
Actually, one of the interviews I had earlier at one of my first episodes was about the idea of there being, because obviously we've got the European League of Football. And we have, I think there's 17 teams in that league. That there's not a London team currently in there. I mean, do you think it would make more sense if you're going to take things, step by step and be more cautious with it? Do you think that's probably a better idea if there was one of the London clubs perhaps entered into the European League of Football?
Well, the Warriors were supposed to enter into some form of European League maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and they didn't for, I think it was financial and red tape reasons, which leads me to my point in terms of the ELF. You notice it. There's everybody else around us has a team in Europe in the ELF, right? And we're the only ones who don't. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's a business, right? Business first, a money-making business. And the ELF, they need to be able to, they want to see their worth in terms of, if we give the London a team, what are we getting back? Every other team in the ELF can put bums on seats in their domestic countries and sell tickets and attract fan bases and sell a package. We just can't do that right now. We can't, and it's a shame, because we used to, and I'm talking obviously the domestic game over here. I played for 11 years, but I'm talking even prior to me. We're talking London Monarchs, the Olympians, the London Ravens. We're talking when we were sponsored by Coca-Cola, Budweiser. I mean, come on, we used to sell out Wembley. It's insane to think that we've come down from that level of glory to where we are now. And for someone who was involved in the ground game for so many years, I've seen all the different levels of, what the league was, what it's trying to do, and where it's at now. And the ELF, there's a reason why everybody else has a team and we don't. People always ask this question: when's the London getting a team? Are we going to call them the Monarchs? Are they going to come back? Are they going to be the London Ravens? There ain't no team. And I don't think there's a team coming anytime soon, because we don't have an attractive enough package to be able to say to the ELF, this is what we can offer you in return for giving us a franchise. It just isn't going to work. And I would love it to again. But the way things are, I just can't see that happening. So both the answer to the ELF London team and the NFL team over here, I think it works best as the Jags come into play here as often as possible. And then you add the 2 extra games that we get at Tottenham, because Tottenham is the home of the NFL here in the UK. And it's I believe the only officially dedicated NFL stadium in Europe, I think. So yeah, I think that setup works best. I don't think that will be changing anytime soon. Sorry, fans.
It's being a realist, I suppose,
Hmm.
because I think there is always talk of that, and I think people like to kind of sensationalize it a bit to be kind of like, okay, are we just going to plant a franchise in London? I think earlier in the year there was the statement about, the idea was mooted about having a Super Bowl in the UK, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
American fans are really unhappy about that, and I'm kind of thinking that would have definitely been taken out of context. But I think definitely, as you mentioned, something I was wanting to come on to is the fact that you played for a long time, 11,
Mm.
11 years. That's more than most NFL running backs, to be honest. But having played for a number of teams around the UK, a couple of the London clubs as well. How have you seen the sport kind of evolve on the grassroots level? How have you kind of seen that develop over the years?
It's a good question. So I started in 2010 when I first went to uni in Brighton. So the team was the Brighton Tsunami. I wasn't intending to play American football, to be fair. I was coming from a rugby background. I played rugby for 4 years at the time as a winger, and I wanted to continue doing that at uni, except the rugby team played and trained too far from where I lived. And at the time, I didn't drive in my first year of uni, so I had no way of getting there. And I was at my freshers fair, and the next best contact sport I could find was American football. Now, bearing in mind, I'm from North London, right? And unbeknown to me, well, I did know, but it wasn't in the know. Market Road is a place in London. It's just like a 5 minute walk from my house. And the London Blitz currently were the team that trained there. And I always used to see this team in helmets and thinking, what's all this? What's going on? Not taking much notice. And then I get to uni and end up joining the American football team. And first thing I'll say is I wish I discovered the sport earlier. I say that all the time. I really wish I did discover the sport earlier. And it ties into my answer to your question. Over the years, I've seen more and more exposure for the sport here in the UK, both at a domestic level and at a NFL level in terms of the awareness. I've seen more and more opportunities for people to play the game, and not only that, to take the game to the next level. And it's been nothing short of amazing to see. It's monumental almost, because it's like, when you leave primary school or secondary school, you leave and then you go about your life, and for whatever reason you come back because something, there's a calling there, maybe you have siblings or whatever, and you get back or you hear from a friend, you go, oh my gosh, have you seen what they've done to our school? And they've upgraded it, the tech is amazing, everything's looking brand new, and you think, why didn't I have that when I was there? Like, they didn't care about us. Like, what? That's how the sport has kind of gone here in the UK. You got the NFL Academy, which, if people don't know about, is it gives people who are 16 to 19-year-olds a chance to be trained by some of the best, be coached by some of the best, have access to the best facilities and equipment, and with the end goal of potentially making it onto a program in the US, whether it be JUCO, Div 1, Div 2, Power 5. And there are so many guys that have made that. They've signed up to the academy and they've made that step. Peter Clark is out in Temple, Pennsylvania, Temple Owls. Emmanuel Okoye, who came from initially NFL Africa into the NFL Academy, who's now with the Tennessee Volunteers. Daniel Akinkumi, who I just had on the show last week, who one of the most prominent people to play for the academy, 18 years old, over 300 pounds, 6'5", had 35 plus offers, 35 plus, who just announced his commitment to the Oklahoma Sooners, which is a
Oh,
ridiculous, just ridiculous to even say.
blue blood team to play for as well.
Honestly, I can't even begin to say how the opportunities are almost endless right now. So domestically, I mean, the game still needs a lot of work in the UK. But I think you mentioned it there, grassroots. That's the word, because right now, flag football has taken off, and there's no signs of slowing down. You've just seen the announcement about the Olympics, LA
Yep.
2028. The GB women went and won gold in the European Championships this year as well, after winning silver, I believe it was last year. I think the men's might have placed in third or fourth, but the grassroots facilities and the grassroots options available to people in this sport in this country right now are endless. It's honestly, it's so amazing to see. You've got organizations like Big Kids Foundation who are doing huge things. Shaninga, who heads that up and is doing things for people for all ages and aspects of the sport. But grassroots is where it's at. I think it's capturing the attention spans of these kids whilst they're young, showing them what's possible. You've got flag teams who are going out to Orlando, going out to the Pro Bowl from the UK, who are, they're being rewarded for their achievements, and they're being exposed to the game at the creme de la creme level. You give them that kind of exposure, And then you continue to drip feed that through with people like Diana Flores from Mexico, and the whole empowerment of females in the sport in particular, because they are doing they're killing it in this sport, man, massively. And I think it's only going to continue to get bigger. So in my 11 years, I mean, when I started, flag football wasn't a thing. Not that it wasn't a thing, it just wasn't out there. It wasn't prominent, aside from those who knew about it from their local club. Like the Kent Exiles always had a great foundation from flag football all the way up to contact. And that still remains now. And there are a lot of people who have gone from different flag programs to do different things. And it's not to say that you have to stick with flag football, but the introduction to the game, especially at the grassroots level, starts for me at flag football right now. And I mean, the progression is great to see. I mentioned some names already from the UK who are doing it big, but you only have to look as far as F.A. Barda, who, kind of pioneers that and flies that flag right now, who, played a handful of games for the London Warriors, who are the ex-national champions. He had a long journey, but I mean, the journey is well worth it if you look at what he's doing right now. I know he's currently broken his leg and, he's out of the season, but the guy's played on, I think, with the Falcons, Panthers. I think he was on the Falcons practice squad. Breakthrough with the Panthers, came back here to London to play a home game. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that. And obviously with the Commanders right now, but he's living and breathing the NFL. He's doing it big. So no, I think the growth has been monumental. There's so many different avenues, and like you mentioned earlier, there's a whole community in UK now of people who are, I feel like, getting more invested in the sport, which is great. The awareness is there, the movement is there. So many podcasts and people coming out with initiatives and wanting to grow the game, because it's an amazing sport to play, man. It's an amazing sport to be involved in, and I think it's only going to continue to get better. Honestly, the opportunities are endless right now, and it's a great time to be a fan or just be involved in the sport in any way, shape or form right now.
I mean, one of the things you mentioned being the NFL launching the NFL Academy in London. I think that was in 2019 when it first started.
Yep.
It's incredible to see now that you're seeing that the kind of fruits of that. You're literally seeing British players playing NCAA. I mean, to list some of the teams. I mean, Oklahoma Sooners. That's
crazy.
That's as big as it gets. To think how far we've come at this is quite incredible. The appetite for the sport is clearly there. I think that's clear to see. Just look at the attendance figures for any of the London games this year, and I think the games at Tottenham are particularly special as well. I mean, even myself going to the Ravens game, I've followed the team for the past 10 years, and it's kind of, I always thought it was a bit of a niche or slightly maverick team to have. Like, it's a bit of a random place in the East Coast where I'd go, I guess, to watch a game every now and then. But I mean, to have them in London and to see flocks of fans, pun intended, like, it's incredible. For grassroots then in the UK, just to wrap up, in terms of the next steps, do you think it's mainly kind of awareness and visibility there?
It's a good question. Next steps, grassroots. Yes, 100%. So I use the Jags as an example, right? So Jags UK obviously are a big deal over here in terms of they've got their own platform, their own awareness, their own website. They do their own kind of work. Of course, they're linked to the Jags UK, but they are, Jags in the US, but they are Jags UK. One of the things they do really well is something called Jag Tag, which is headed up by Andy Scott, who was a good friend, but also an ex-coach of mine when I played at uni at Kent as well, and we've obviously just stayed in contact and I actually do a lot of work for the Jags, albeit I'm a Colts fan, so yeah, strange there, but hey, work is work. And what they do really well is they partner up with schools, loads of schools, and they put on so many clinics for these schools, and I attend quite a lot of them and for media purposes. But man, when you see these kids taking part in these flag football, number one, when you're a kid in school, of course you want to be out of school. It means you get to go and do flag football and you go and play and by the way, meet NFL players too. Hell yeah, of course. But number two, the exposure that it gives them, the excitement that it gives them. I mean, they're getting freebies when they leave. They're getting to be coached by some great coaches. They're getting filmed. They're getting media. I think it even went as far as this year there was the Bears and the Jets announced that they were doing the all girls league over here in Ealing, and there were a number of schools, each sponsored by the Bears and the Jets, and they had a tournament. And I remember the launch of it. You had people like Phoebe Schechter there, CJ Uzama was there, Chase Claypool at the time with the Bears, he was there, and you got Hannah Wilkes from Sky as well, and Ugo Monet. Loads of people promoting the sport, and that's what the kind of things it needs. Go into different schools, go into different environments, put the presentation up, explain what this is all about, give the examples, and now you can use the examples of the girls team who won, for example. I believe they went out to Florida, Orlando for the Pro Bowl. I mean, these kind of things don't just happen every day, but they're becoming more and more common because of the awareness, because of the promotion. In terms of next steps, I think that's exactly where it needs to be. Make an example of the people who are already doing it big, because we've created the pathway for them to do it. Be it the girls' school in Ealing or the boys' school in Ealing or wherever they may be in the UK, but it's happening, and it's happening at a rapid rate. And with news of the Olympics, it's only going to accelerate that. It's only going to accelerate it. So I'd definitely say for sure, next steps, promotion, awareness, shine that light, continue to do it, because the formula is working, and it's a matter of time before we really, really reach the pinnacle of what we can do as a country in that particular field.
And coming back to one of your points earlier, any given Sunday, you never know what's going to happen. It's such an exciting sport to follow. You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. We got some big games, I think, this weekend. I mean, the 49ers and Eagles ain't get any bigger than that at all.
Yeah, coming back to the Eagles, maybe you'll test Jalen Hurts' mettle. If you don't think he's the MVP yet, maybe you'll put on another.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you look at last season, this is the matchup that kind of derailed their Super Bowl chance. I think it was Hassan Reddick they had a backup tight end blocking Hassan Reddick on the edge, which ended badly because that obviously tore Brock Purdy's elbow, and that's where he got that injury, and that was it. He then stepped out of the game. I don't remember who then went in, and that was it for the 49ers. So now we return in the supposed matchup where you would hope the 49ers have a plan to at least attack these guys and do it right. So it'd be good to see what happens, if they've learned their lesson and, don't put a backup on someone like Hassan Reddick who's just there to cause chaos.
He's a wrecking ball, isn't he? He really is. I think he's definitely one of the dominant forces in Philadelphia's D-line, the defense as a whole.
Yeah.
Maybe lay off Sirianni if he's not your favorite head coach in the world.
Yeah, I can't stand that guy.
I mean, they're literally flying right now. I guess the Eagles, and 10-1, another matchup, another good matchup to look out for. But yeah, it's definitely exciting for the NFL as it reaches the business end of the season. But George, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk with you today, and I wish you all the best.
Pleasure, man. Anytime. I'd love to do this again. Just let me know. I'm
Absolutely.
down.